Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Autism Our Story podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Libby Ingram, John Paul's mom from the Telepathy Tapes. Libby, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and then we'll start from there.
Sounds good. So my name's Libby Ingram. My son is John Paul. And yes, we are in the Telepathy Tapes. We actually started filming the documentary in 2022. And so after he passed, in a turn of events, it became the podcast. So that's how that all came about.
So then it started out as being like a documentary type. Okay.
It did. So my friend Katie Asher, of course, who you know is in the Telepathy Tapes. It was really her thing. She was doing this, and we were sitting at Recliff because we used to plan all of our therapies together,
Yeah.
so we could sit and chat. And you know how it goes. You do a lot of
Yeah.
waiting.
Yes.
I'm a speech therapist as well, but after COVID, I pretty much said I just really hated Zoom speech therapy. So I'm like, I think I'm just going to focus on something else. So it was just all John Paul and homeschool is kind of the direction we took. And so Katie and I would plan our stuff together. And then she was telling me about this thing she was doing with Kai Dickens and with Dr. Powell. And I said, oh my gosh, Katie, do you think I could get in on it? I think that sounds really neat. She said, absolutely. So I had to answer about 28 questions that Kai and Dr. Powell presented. And then Dr. Powell, I sent them and she contacted me like probably within 10 minutes.
Wow.
She said, she said, we'd love to have you in it. So that's kind of how that started.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
So you've been friends with Katie for a while.
I have. Katie and I we met at Recliff years ago. I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. So I don't know if you know the story about John Paul swimming out in the ocean.
Yes. I think I remember it was like on vacation. You guys were together.
You got it right. It was I was on vacation with somebody else completely. This is before Katie came in my life.
Okay.
And Katie, somebody had sent her the story because my friend Jennifer, I remember when it happened in Hilton Head, and I called Jennifer and I said, oh my gosh, a reporter just contacted me, and you know what that's going to mean? I'm the negligent mom. Was she drunk?
Yeah.
Was she passed out? What is she doing? So, you know how people are. They just assume.
Yes.
And they have no idea what elopement really is and what it looks like, how frightening it is. And so she said, I got you. I got this. And she typed up her story and posted it, and it went viral.
Wow.
I think other autism moms really could relate to it.
Yeah.
And because we all know if our kids do elope, we know how unbelievably frightening it is.
Yeah. And also you can't control it. Like you could do the very best to protect them, to keep them safe, and they still will sneak away.
Exactly. They're so clever. So clever. And so Katie and I ran into each other at Recliff, which is where the boys worked out. And she said, oh my gosh, I know you. You're Libby. And she said, basically, we were instant friends. I mean, she has such beautiful energy. And her first thing she said was, she said, well, he was surrounded by angels.
Yeah.
I loved that because I was like, oh, she gets it. We get each other.
Yeah. Well, it's so true. And we've had that for ourselves. Our son has eloped 4 times now.
Oh,
and each time he gets further and further. And we just know only God could have done that. And there were angels there from the other side and from people, right? That were there that noticed him. So, yep. Wow.
Yep. I believe it 100%. People are put in place that are supposed to be there.
Yes.
I agree with that. And I do believe John Paul, we had a lot of little scary incidents, and I feel like he always had protection until it was his time to pass, till it was his time to go.
Yeah. Maybe we can talk about just like a little bit from the beginning. So I actually had heard about you before we heard about the telepathy tapes. So my
Wow.
son's spell to communicate teacher, um, her name is Kelly. She has shared with us that some of her spellers have mentioned Houston and John Paul. Yes. And that was before the
Wow.
telepathy tapes.
Wow.
And she was like talking
Oh
about they were
my
talking
goodness.
about the hill. And she was like, there's this place called the hill. I had no idea. I was like trying to wrap my head around it. This before the telepathy
Wow.
tape. So yeah. So
Wow.
I think that is just so fascinating, just amazing, and just mind blowing.
It is so it's mind-blowing, and it gives me so much comfort
Yeah.
for that our kids have this support system
Mm.
that we don't even know about,
Yeah.
because I mean, I just feel like, thank goodness, because we always worry about them being so lonely, and we worry about, at least I used to worry about who, is he alone? Is he lonely? Does he have anyone to talk to? Or is it,
Right.
and to know that he had this
Mhm.
support group is like, oh,
It's amazing.
yes, it is so comforting.
Yeah. Even for me, from just listening to the telepathy tapes and knowing kind of how to tell when your child might be going to the hill. Um, I just knew, it was just
Yes.
something just calmed my heart. I was like, wow, so he has friends. So wow,
Yes.
it's amazing.
It is. How does your son look when he's on the hill? I can tell you how John Paul looks, but how
Yeah,
does your
so
son look?
my son, one thing that he has been doing lately is he goes on his brother's bunk bed on the top. So on the top,
Uh-huh.
he's on the bottom. Yeah, he goes on his brother's bed and he's in there. And their room has like dark curtains, so he closes them and he is in his brother's bed giggling away. And
Um,
normally he likes to have his phone or iPad when he's at home, but he'll put that aside and go.
yes. Yes. Oh my gosh, Nicole, that's exactly what it looks like with John Paul. He would lay on his bed, literally put 4 to 5 pillows on his head, sometimes just a blanket,
Yeah.
and he put the iPad away. There was no iPad, and he would just make noises. His hands would be up. I'd
Yeah.
come in and check on him, and he would be all sweaty from all the pillows on top of
Yeah.
the bed. And
Yeah.
he would like let me come down and give him a kiss, and he'd push me away, like, okay,
Like, I
mom,
gotta
I
go
need
back.
my
Oh,
yes,
sweet.
yes, it's my social time. Don't interfere. And
Yeah.
sometimes he would cry, sometimes he'd laugh.
Oh,
I felt like,
yeah.
are they solving all the world's problems in there?
Yeah. Wow, I think that's just amazing that
Mhm.
they have that and that they have each other, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
beautiful.
And so much love between all
Yeah.
of them. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing I don't think people understand, is just how much love our guys have in
Yeah.
us.
They really
It in them, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I remember seeing, we were at a big autism party. We have a place where one of the OTs has a space that she rented. So for like a lot of people like to do birthday parties there and dances there. It's
yeah.
called Minds in Motion. And the therapist Jess is the one who basically taught JP to spell after Elizabeth
Mhm.
Osler had worked with him. And Soma, and she's wonderful. But we would do parties there. And I remember John Paul has this thing about balloons. So always his whole life, they must be popped. There's not, a balloon
Okay.
is meant to be
To be
popped.
popped.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, when he was like, I want to say 3, I would literally blow up probably about 300 to 400 balloons a day,
Just to pop
because
them.
just to entertain the boy,
Sweet.
because I was so desperate.
Yeah.
Desperation. It got so crazy that even when I ran out of balloons, I would go into my speech path cabinet where I had all my rubber gloves for doing
Yeah.
oral motor work, and I'd start blowing them up like chicken heads and throwing them at him. I'm like,
Oh,
I must have the best lungs of anybody here.
yeah. Wow.
My friend is a pediatrician. She said, Libby, I cannot believe you allowed, because what he would do is he would put a little bite on the side of the balloon, so
Okay.
that the air would flow on
Oh,
his
okay.
cheeks.
Yeah.
And of course, that's like like neurotypical parent is like, I cannot believe she allows balloons so close to her
Yes.
child's mouth.
Yes. Yep.
Um, and I mean, normally, sure, yes, it's crazy. But for John Paul, I told my friend, I said, Dorsey, I guarantee you, John Paul does about 1,000 balloons a day, and he has yet to have a problem.
Yeah.
I said, I'm
Yeah.
surviving here. I am just
Yeah.
surviving.
Yes. You're doing your
But
best.
so anyway, it really it is, and it Minds in Motion. I remember his absolute favorite were Mylar balloons, particularly Mylar balloons. Down when he got older, and
Yeah.
in the distance, I saw one of his friends, and his friend is more of a he kind of lives in fight and flight, like
Okay.
he's always kind of in fight mode,
Okay.
and. So John Paul, of course, being John Paul, there was a huge bouquet of flowers, and he popped the Mylar, and it sent his friend into a tailspin.
Oh,
That noise jarred his nervous system. So I
yeah.
look at the distance, and here John Paul is. I mean, John Paul, at this point, he must have been 6'6" at that time. And his
Yeah.
friend was shorter, but a big boy. But I
Yeah.
see in the distance, his friend is like basically in this horrible fight mode, just flinging his arms and punching people. And John Paul just grabs his hands and just holds them, just
Oh,
holds them like,
yeah.
sorry, I got you. Let's just get through this. Because his friend was going after him too, but not
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
wanted. Just that's what I don't think people understand is they really are sometimes just a passenger in their body. They just
Yes.
can't control it. But it was
Yes.
just in the distance to see him just holding his friend's hands while his friend was in such a hard time.
Right.
And he probably felt terrible because he caused it to happen. John
Yes.
Paul's probably like, I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sweet.
I
Oh
just
my
think our
goodness.
guys are so loving. They're so loving
So
with each other.
loving. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm yet to find an autistic child or individual who is not
Yeah,
loving. They're so
exactly.
loving.
And there's a difference between their physical stuff and what's in their head.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a battle because people want to read the body,
Yeah.
but
And
they
that's
don't
not,
realize that take the body away from it.
yes. They're
That's not
really,
who they are.
yeah, their real self is in there. Like
Yeah,
who they really are.
that's right. That's exactly right.
Let's talk about how things were when he was younger.
That's a good question because I kind of have everyone kind of has their own story, but I do see over the years of doing, being a speech pathologist,
Yeah.
I would say I at this stage, because I'm old, I'm
Yeah.
50, not old, but I'm
Not
54.
old.
I've been through this for a really long time. And
Yeah.
probably, I mean, I've seen thousands and thousands of kids. And I see so many patterns in autism. And like for John Paul, when he was little, everything was moving along as it should. And then around 18 months, it's like the break. I just started. In fact, I'm working on a reel about it right now because, it's almost like the brakes hit and then he started almost like rolling backwards.
Yeah.
And I do see a difference. So that was John Paul. Thomas, of course, is his twin. So I could
Yeah.
really see what was happening. And I was
Yeah.
actually in the beginning more worried about Thomas.
Okay.
I was worried about him. I wasn't so worried about John Paul. That's how different it was.
Okay. So you weren't really noticing on him until, oh, wow.
No. And then all of a sudden, and I mean, there's so many theories to what happened. And we know the theories. We
Yeah.
know. And, that's like that's very controversial.
Yeah.
And it's funny. Cindy said she can't. She's like, you can't say the V word,
The
and
V word.
so because they'll ban her. And so I said, well, we won't. But I said, that is something everybody worries about. Parents worry about
Yeah.
all the time.
That's true. I worried
And
about it too.
yeah, it's terrifying. And then you really hate to think you did something that caused a problem.
Yeah.
You don't want to. It's just too painful to even think that like that.
Yeah.
But it's just unfortunately if that is the time it's going to happen, it is that age, and it happens to be right around the same time as that. So, I mean, we're speaking in such code because we have to, but I think anyone listening to this that's an autism mom knows exactly what we're talking about.
Yep, absolutely. They do. I know they do.
That's just such a controversy, but it really, at this stage, I hope whatever the reasons are, people find it. I hope that maybe it is a trigger, maybe it's not. I would love to know. That would be, for just future generations.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that we figure this thing out. But so, John Paul went backwards, and Thomas kept going forwards. And, but, it's just so, it's one day I know we will all pass. It's just, we are born to die. We're all going to go one day. And I guess I'll have all my answers then.
Yeah, we'll understand everything. Yeah.
And
hard to wrap it's hard to understand,
Yes. Yeah, it is. And I kind of have to be with peace of how everything is, because I just don't really have a choice. It's sort of like, it's what happened. And like today though, but I know, that I had a really bad morning and night, and it's just the thing is the grief will come on, and the strangest thing will trigger it, or maybe not even a strange thing, but something will trigger me. And it's like, the floodgates open, and it is. And, and the funny thing is that John Paul, I know it breaks his heart when that happens, because I start getting angel numbers constantly. The minute these things happen, I get angel numbers. In fact, my friend this morning, I know and Becky, who in episode 9, my friend Becky, she's my friend now. Becky was the lady who came to me through Jennifer to tell me all the things John Paul wanted me to know. So Becky and I are we're really, really close friends, and I just adore her and her family. And she'll call me out of the blue, and she'll say, how are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm not having a good day. She's like, I know, that's why I'm calling you. He's okay. Wow. I know.
I just love that you have that.
I know. And if it's not Becky, it's Lily. John Paul's girlfriend.
Lily. See, so that's another question I had. I think I mentioned, but so she still communicates with him
every day.
Oh, sweet.
Every day. Lily came over. Oh, it's so awesome. I mean, so after JP passed, Lily came over about every night. Her dad or her mom, but mostly Scott, would bring her over just so she could be with everyone. Because again, the house was full of people, which I needed. It's like I just was afraid to be alone. That made I didn't want to be alone, and
I understand that.
It was awful. I just didn't even want to be in my own skin, if that makes sense. I just wish I could have zipped off my skin and just disappeared. I couldn't get. It's like I didn't know how to exist, because our boys and girls, they need us so much. And my whole, Thomas was more independent. He was, at this stage, Thomas is doing his own thing with all his friends. He's driving, he's going to parties. And, John Paul and I were so close. We're so close to our kids, right? I mean, on a different level, they're just out of just necessity. And it's like, I had no idea how to function. And I was always in a state of, I mean, especially if you have an eloper and a sensory seeker. You're always in a state of getting ready for the next thing.
Vigilance.
Yes. And John Paul had extreme pica. So I haven't posted the photo, and I will. What's that? Does he have pica too?
Not right now, but that's like what in the beginning of our journey had a lot of pica. Really bad.
Yes. Is it better?
Yes. So his pica was not with just any random non-edible, how do you say?
Inedible. Yes.
So he would So he wanted to chew on wood, so he chewed on our table, our dining room table,
Okay.
dining room chairs,
Uh-huh.
side tables, his crib. He would chew it like a dog
Yes.
was there.
Right.
Yeah, it
We
was
have that.
really
We have that.
yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so John Paul, he developed it
Okay.
more than so. Oh, and that kind of goes back to when I was saying, like, John Paul is regressive.
Mhm.
Then are those kids who just are slow to develop.
Yeah.
Remember, like John Paul was regressive, and then other kids are like they're like more like PDD and OS. You
Mm.
know, and for anyone who don't know, it's pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. And a
Mhm.
book that Temple Grandin wrote, because I read one of her books, she talks about the prognosis, for children who regress versus children who are slow to develop.
Okay.
Like they both get the autism diagnosis, but like my nephew has autism, but he would be considered more of like an ASD2 kid, maybe
Okay.
ASD1. Maybe he can live more independent, like he might, he can talk, he can
Okay.
work, he's those kinds of things.
Yeah.
However, it still makes life difficult because then they have to fit into, the neurotypical world
Oh,
more
yeah.
than like John Paul ever did. So that presents another whole set of problems that are
Yeah.
also challenging and difficult,
Yeah.
and very emotionally difficult.
Yes,
Uh,
because they have to try to fit in, and
yes,
people don't really sometimes accept that they are autistic because
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and so I always, it's like so I think sometimes moms with like ASD3 kids get, I hear a lot of frustrating conversations like, oh, they don't know what it's like, but they really do have another set of problems. They're just different from our problems.
Mhm.
And that's really, I don't think it's a fun, it's like, I don't like that it's a competition because who wants to be in this competition?
I know.
My kid's
That's
harder than
true.
your kid, like
Yeah.
who wants to win that,
Yeah.
so
Nobody wants to be.
but
Yeah.
I think, but I mean, I have felt that way when I've been really tired. I have felt that way.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know that conversation, and I've thought about it both ways. I think we all
Yes.
have to like love and hear each other,
Yeah.
and because that's really the only way we can get
Or we
we're
can help each other. Yep.
yeah, that we're going to move forward and get, we can't all be fighting with each other
Yeah.
about these kinds of
Yeah.
things. But John Paul's Pica came later, and but not so much later. I mean, he was maybe 4 or so where I really was like, oh my Lord, John Paul, stop
Yeah.
that. Like he would, and then, it was unbelievable. You wouldn't believe what he would do. So like Peter would, okay, this happened he likes to do things like on decade birthdays for me. John Paul does. So like on
Okay.
my 40th birthday, he eloped at the cabin. So I had to sprint in my pajamas a mile down the road to the lake that I knew he had probably gone to. And sure enough, he was there. I think I
Okay.
must have run the fastest mile of my life.
Oh, wow.
I don't think my feet even touched the ground. I was like,
Mhm.
this is adrenaline right here,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then on my 50th birthday, Peter was moving something up the stairs. So he had taken the pictures off the walls. And suddenly John Paul comes to me and he said that, he was pointing to his bottom. So I was wiping his bottom and there was blood on it.
Oh.
And I thought, this is odd. And then he spells, it hurts so bad.
Oh.
So then I thought he was having maybe appendicitis or something because of the
Okay.
way he was touching his stomach. Like, this is really hurting.
Okay.
So I take him to the hospital. I used to love it was hysterical going to Scottish Rite when you're 6'8" is very
Yeah.
funny to go to the children's hospital.
Yeah.
So, but they won't take you at the adult hospital. I used to try to take him just to regular hospital, and they always, they say, oh, we're going to take, you got to go to Scottish Rite. So it's a riot because the nurses all kind of, you can see heads popping out of the window, out of the
Yeah.
doors.
They
John Paul's
were
walking around.
yeah.
And some of them already know him because we've been there more than one or two times.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, and we take an X-ray, and John Paul has 3 4-inch nails in his gut. He had pulled the nails out of the wall as Peter took the pictures off and swallowed them. So 2 of them he had passed, and that's where the blood came from. But he still had 3 in his gut, along with a key that he had swallowed earlier and a metal wire. So I have the photo. One of these days I'll post it. I just, I didn't post things like that when he was alive so much because I don't know, there's a fine line, like how much do you, and you want to educate and show people this can really happen, but then you really want to handle all the criticism and people possibly teasing your child or all the trolls coming out. So I was really careful. I think parents, if you can handle the teasing, great. You're showing people what autism can look like, but I didn't do it at the time. But it was really extreme. So I was there for days because he'd have to eat, go to the bathroom, we x-ray, eat, go to the bathroom, he x-ray. So it took days to get everything to pass.
Yeah.
But we got out of there, and it's just, another day in the office for an autism mom.
Wow. Yes. I just can't imagine how he might have. How do you swallow?
Oh, it was the craziest thing. Like, I felt like I was living. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Elf, with okay, so John Paul just kind of reminded me of Buddy from Elf. He would sit there and he would eat a Chick-fil-A sandwich. And if I didn't think, so how with autism moms, you're always thinking about every little thing they do as far as, okay, I've got to do this because they're going to do that. I've got to make sure this isn't out because he's going to eat that. Or I've got to make sure I close this door because, there's always, your brain is always going a mile a minute of all the things you're trying to prevent from happening or make it an easy transition. That's just a way of life, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, but John Paul could eat a Chick-fil-A and then eat the wrapper, that silver wrapper, and then he'd look at me like, okay,
trying to hide it.
Yes, like hide it, and then all of a sudden, no, and he'd shove it in his mouth, and then he'd turn his big back, and once that gigantic back was turned, there's no way
you'll never see it.
You were getting that thing from him. Impossible. And then he would he would just look like some sort of like, I don't know, snake. I don't know. He just gulp, and I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, please don't choke in the car. Please don't choke in the car. But he never did. But what he would do is he would throw up. A lot of times after he'd eat, he'd go throw up. It's almost, we went to every doctor and they couldn't find any reason for this. But he would throw up, and he got to where it was almost like a loop, like a routine. And he'd go to the sink, and I'm not kidding you, Nicole, it looked like a garbage can.
So just
because
everything.
Like bottle tops, everything that he felt. And he started, now I will say, he did start doing that at a young age. I didn't realize how bad it was, but one time he threw up, and it was in the chair, and it was these big pieces of styrofoam. And I'm like, how in the world did he get those down his throat? So, that was sort of an ongoing thing with him. He never met a bottle of a liquid he didn't like, it just, we had to lock the kitchen. We had John Proof the whole house. So, and that's one thing that I do like, is that I can have autistics over at my house as much, and it's because the house
it's ready.
Is already John Paul proof. So
it's
ready to go.
Yeah.
So we did a Day of the Dead party for the kids this year. We did it the year John Paul was alive when we did the first one, and it was so much fun. We celebrate, Day of the Dead is actually a wonderful celebration, right? To celebrate ones that have passed over, family and loved ones.
Yes.
I couldn't do it the year of John Paul passing. Forget it. I was
Yeah, it was too hard.
too fresh.
Yeah.
When I've thought about it though, just like maybe it would be nice for all his friends to be able to get together. But
Yeah.
then my friend May's mom, another really good friend of mine in the autism community, we have this group called UNRA, which is the United Neurodivergent Rebels of Atlanta, and we get together. Some mom started it, and we get together and do parties. And so she's like, "I don't think you're going to want to do this party yet, Libby." And she was 100% right. But this year it was wonderful. It was wonderful. We did it this year, and I thought I'll do it every year. I think I'm going to do it. Just that'll be our thing we like to do. Yeah, and my house is already, John Paul proof. So, and I always say there's nothing really anyone can do to this house that John Paul hasn't already done to it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I just love that you're able to talk about even the pica situation, because that's something, I mean, I just knew that's something most parents don't share, but I feel like people need to know these things.
Yes.
Our situation was just, he would just eat wood. We couldn't go to a playground with the wood chips because
Yes, absolutely.
so that's the extent that I knew it, but that was new to me, and it's just, good to know what some parents might be going through.
I agree. I agree. I mean, that's the thing is I feel like as hard as it is, we almost have to put ourselves out there a little bit to educate people. And I don't want to say like normalize it because, it's not normal what they do, but not to like, it makes it hard to go places unless you have the thickest skin of anyone, because it's always going to be challenging. People are going to stare, they're going to look at you. I mean, that if that hurts you, it's terrible. Some parents can really I don't know, they can handle it. I was 50-50. There were times I could handle it, and there were times I just said, you know what, I just want to stay home. I just don't feel like dealing with this.
Yeah, it's tough. Sometimes
So
you just gotta do what feels right for you.
Right.
I have those days too where I have to talk myself into going out, and
Yes.
sometimes I'm like, you know what? No, we're staying. It's a lot.
I know. No, yeah, you have it. Sometimes it's not going to be a happy time, and then your children feel your energy. They hear your thoughts,
Yes.
and so it causes even more dysregulation. I mean, it was like John Paul. I would start to get, for some reason, every time we went to Kaiser Permanente for an appointment, a medical appointment, we were just around the corner. We'd be driving there, and all of a sudden, John Paul would go make one of his really loud vocalizations that are scary loud, and he'd look at me like, uh-oh, and I would say, uh-oh. I mean, we kind of, because then you start the list, and I'm like, oh, honey, it's okay, don't. And then, but it's like he could hear me get anxious and tense, and but it was just like, I mean, those things happened all the time, but I just had to laugh at him, because if you don't laugh, you're just going to be miserable.
Yeah.
I don't want to be miserable. It's like after GP passed, I said, I'm too young to feel this bad for the rest of my life. I cannot feel this bad. I can't bear to feel this bad. And, but then you're like, but am I allowed to feel good? Am I allowed to be happy? And so it takes time, but I feel like I had the fast track. I mean, I had people coming forward to give me messages from John Paul that was like a fast track. You couldn't have made that up. You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
And so when Lily would come over, so for the first 2 weeks after JP passed, Lily was very dysregulated. It was so hard for her. She was so upset, and she broke my heart, because I adore that young lady, and she calls me her mother and soul,
Oh, sweet.
because instead of isn't that sweet? Instead of mother-in-law, I'm her mother and soul,
Yeah.
and I'll always be there for her is in whatever way I need to be. I just love. I mean, I love all of
Yeah.
our kids. I do. I
Yeah.
love them all, and I love Lily. And so Lily started calming down, and I said, Lily, I said, she started feeling better. And she said, she spelled that she's talking to John Paul. And I said, well, what is he saying to you? And she spelled, remember, I always love you. You need to tell our story. So that's when I started talking to Scott. And I said, Scott, would you guys want to be in the doc? Because she wasn't originally in the documentary.
Okay.
And so I said, would you let Lily be in it? And of course, Scott and Karen were like, yes. And also it's healing for Lily to be
Yeah.
able to be in it and be able to
Yes.
tell about John Paul and I think it's, Lily at the funeral, Lily presented something, Houston did. I think they have to heal too. It's
Yes.
not just about mom and dad, it's everybody's the whole community.
Yeah.
Um, so Lily so once Lily I think realized John Paul's not really gone, because I still see him all, I think once she realized she wasn't,
Yeah. It clicked for
that
her.
he's not gone from her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now she's a lot better. She
Yeah.
started really feeling better, and
That's good.
so yeah, so it makes me happy. I mean, they're just soulmates.
That's so cute. Yeah.
Really are cute. She spells that John Paul, because he visits the hill,
Yeah.
and she spelled that he likes to tell everyone that she's his soulmate.
Oh, sweet. I think that's true, right? They're soulmates.
They are, exactly, even more so than ever. And
Yeah.
I think that they all know we're all going to be together again. One
Yeah.
day it'll be, but he's still there, but it'll
Yeah.
be, so I think that that's just the hope we have to have.
Hold on
And
to. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I think it's awesome that he still visits the hill.
I know.
Wow.
I know. I get messages from moms all over the world
Yeah.
who have told me that they know about the hill, and they'll say, whether or not their child knows John Paul, it's absolutely incredible.
Wow.
The people that have reached out, just just a little message. I try to get to, I mean, I do want to answer and talk to everybody because it's nice to connect. And
Yes.
it's kind of been really healing for me to connect with so many parents.
Yeah.
And I love doing the art class and spelling with the kids at NIA school. I mean, that just really feeds my soul and gives me purpose. And I enjoy it so much. And I feel the same way about autism moms. I
Yeah.
just love connecting with autism moms. Or if I see, so even if someone out, I'll look over. I'm like, I see you. I see you. I
Yeah.
see your life, just because we all sort of need to support each other.
Yes, that's true. I feel like that's it. I just felt like you were so amazing when you responded to my message. I was like telling my husband, I was like, I just can't believe how awesome she is. She's just
Oh,
so loving and so sweet. Like I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, she is the sweetest.
oh, you're so sweet. I just have always felt like the one thing that makes life so hard is thinking you're all alone.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
in
that's
this by yourself and no one understands,
yeah.
because it's hard for people to understand. I will tell you this. I mean, I was a speech therapist for, let's see, starting in 99, and then I had John Paul in 2006. I
Yeah.
worked in the school system for years, and then I worked in clinics, and then I had my own, just my practice, just me. I never had like this big practice where I hired people. I just did it for me. And
Mhm.
I truly did not get what autism like our kids was until I had John Paul. I thought I knew it all. I did. I thought I had this, I of course I get this. I know this. Absolutely not. Now, did I have speech therapists that felt the same way? Yes. Did I show them grace? Yes, because the mothers that I saw, they showed me grace. They didn't they probably, when they closed the door, they were like, oh my goodness, little Miss Know-It-All, just like she thinks she knows, but she doesn't know. But they never made me feel, they were glad I was helping them, but they let me say a lot of really stupid things that I just didn't know. I just didn't know. And so I did the same with the therapist. I have had some of the most darling, wonderful therapists. But our lives didn't really get really good till we started spelling.
Yeah, I think that's one thing with most of us who then go to spelling. It's all those therapies. We just know that they weren't working. Like, it's different for other kids that might have like a speech delay. That might
right. Oh,
it's
yes,
it's
Nicole.
Not the same.
Yes. No, it's not the same. And you're right. It's like you're scared you want to make sure you've investigated everything because you just want to make sure you didn't leave anything out. But I'm saying it's like I remember I was at a bowling alley and there was a mom there and John Paul was bowling. And it was a very sweet mom. And she was telling me how she had, cured her child and everything. And I said, that's awesome. That is fantastic. And then so she had started her own business on healing other children. And I said, that is fantastic. I'm really happy. I said, well, she's like, so this is what you do. She goes, this is going to make you laugh. She's like, here's what you do. You do hippotherapy. I said, yes, done it. She said, you do speech therapy. Yes, we did that. I mean, she kept going down her list. Aqua therapy. Yes, we did that too. I mean, and I was at the same time, I'm showing her grace because she really wants to help me. She wants to help me. And GFCF. I said, yes, we did that too. And you could see her. I didn't want to
let her
burst her bubble. I know that, but then I said, can I ask you something? I said, what was your child's diagnosis exactly? And she said, PDD-NOS. And I said, that's fabulous. They do put it on the spectrum. They do put PDD-NOS on the spectrum. However, that's more of a delay. I mean, pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. So, like my nephew was diagnosed as that. And so, yes, speech therapy was fabulous for him. Everything he did made a difference. But our kids that regress just have a different, it's like it's different. And I almost wish that we could just call it something different. Like Katie and I talk about it all the time. I'm like, why can't we call our kids regressive sensory motor autism? Can't we? Because that right away tells you something different. If Katie wants to go even deeper than that. But I'm like, right away, that would help a little bit because I think parents, I mean, you don't leave any stone unturned, but I do sometimes wish parents didn't wait. We spend so much money for years.
Yeah, that's the thing. I hope parents can get to a place where they can start spelling earlier.
Because there's no harm in spelling. It's like, just do it. Do everything else you want to do, but just throw in spelling just in case the other thing doesn't happen. And because I'm not God, I can't tell you. I would never tell a parent they're 100% your child's never going to talk. Never. I would never do that. I wouldn't do that because I don't know. But if you're spelling, there's no harm. There's no harm minute. And it's different than an AAC device. That's what
Yeah.
other people don't realize, how different it is. And I'm not against AAC devices.
Yeah.
There's this poor girl who was so unhappy about the telepathy tapes.
Yeah.
This poor woman is so unhappy. And I don't know, it kind of makes me giggle because I think she healed her daughter, so that's
Okay.
fabulous. I'm glad she healed her daughter.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's just had, I think she's got a huge following. She has people who, and listen, I follow her,
Yeah.
and she follows me, and I want to go forward with love.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to be nasty and
Yeah.
mean to each other. I think that is just the wrong way to go about. I just giggle because she's very angry and
Oh, wow.
really unhappy, and people keep sending me stuff, and I'm like, if someone wanted me to engage with her, I said I really don't want to,
Yeah.
because
It would
it's
be
not
messy.
what's going to come of it, really. I mean, let's
Yeah.
just keep doing what we're doing and go from there, and maybe she'll listen, and maybe not, but that's okay. But it's just I just don't want mudslinging. I don't like the
Yeah.
whole mudslinging thing. I don't think that's
Yeah.
the way. That's not how John Paul would want to do it. John Paul
Exactly.
just said, just love, mom.
Love, yes.
He said, just love. They don't understand, just love them. That was his favorite thing to say. If someone was mean,
Oh, I love
no,
that.
she doesn't understand, just love her.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, just love her.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, that's the best
her,
way to
and
do
so
it.
I'm like, "You're just gonna love her," because she
Yeah.
thinks she's doing the right thing,
Yeah.
and I do think what her approach probably does help children like hers, and that's
Yep.
great. I just think we need to understand that not all autism is the same.
It's the same. Yep.
And
That's it.
that is, I think that the medical profession has just been really lazy about finding out the differences in the autism, and maybe what is the right approach for the different types of
Autism.
autism.
Yeah.
You know? Um,
Yeah.
I think I did a reel about, like, what were the things that were really good for John Paul? Spelling was really good. Anything purposeful motor was really good. Working on the sensory integration was really good. I
Yeah.
mean, those were things I was happy to put my money towards.
Yeah.
Then,
Because they worked.
they
You
worked.
could see
It was
results.
exactly. And, I remember talking to one of our we did biomedical. We did
Yeah.
a biomedical John Paul throughout John Paul's whole life. I mean,
Yeah.
just because Peter's like, Libby, you would bathe John Paul in tar if you thought it would help. I said, yes,
Yeah.
I probably would. And Peter said, just don't do anything. We did chelation, which probably was the most invasive thing. Every biomedical doctor said they were going to cure him. And again, I would not. There are people who have had incredible success with biomedical.
Yeah.
We didn't, but I don't want to put it down, because again, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't
It might work
know.
for others. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know. But I was even doing it right before JP passed,
Yeah.
and then I got spooked a little bit, because I felt like the medications, I didn't know how they would interfere with his other stuff. So I got a little scared, and
Yeah.
I just stopped. I was just worried.
Yeah.
Ironically, he passed away anyway, but what he really passed away from was a cardiac arrest.
Okay.
People assume it was a seizure. I assumed it was a seizure.
Okay.
But, we did not have an autopsy done. We did not do that. I didn't want him cut. I was in so much shock after he passed. I was just in shock. I didn't even I didn't even know. I just wanted to lay down with him forever and just
Yeah.
talk to him and love on him. I didn't want to have to get up. I didn't want to get up, but I knew I had to. I can't lay on the ground with my
Yeah.
child who's passed away forever.
Yeah.
And I also ran up to find, because I could hear Thomas coming down the stairs. So I just had to stop Thomas in the staircase, because I've always tried to keep trauma away from Thomas as much as possible.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's his
and
twin.
Yeah, and that was a biggie. So I ran and grabbed him. And I mean, we just fell down in the staircase. He was just, it was awful, awful, awful. I just, but I didn't want him to come down and see his brother like that. And so they took John Paul, and I just, we just didn't do one. My friend had one done with her son and said she kind of wished she hadn't.
Yeah.
She said it just, I just felt like he looked so peaceful. Just give him peace. Let's
Yeah.
just, it was so, and it's funny because Houston and Becky both said it was a heart attack. Becky said, "Oh, it's my chest. It's a heart attack," and makes sense because in the hot tub he was always so relaxed. He's never in all those years had a seizure in the hot tub.
Yeah.
But I was worried about his heart because he was sweating so funny, and to me he would start sweating and doing. And I was actually had talked to the doctor about getting a cardiologist just to check him out.
Yeah.
And but then I was at a Christmas gathering, and there was a girl there who was a neurology, or she was a neurologist, but she did research. So
Okay.
more than likely he had a cardiac. She said, I just want you to know epilepsy and cardiac arrest are very related. So it's very probable he did have a cardiac arrest.
Okay.
I didn't realize that the two were related.
Okay.
So he didn't die per se from a seizure, but probably epilepsy was involved,
Okay.
in some capacity, just because. So it just doesn't matter to me how. I knew it was one or the other. It was a cardiac arrest or it was a seizure. And, he started, I felt like, coming back when we
Oh,
were
did you?
doing CPR. I thought he was coming back. And then, he just didn't, he threw up, his color got better. And then I just in my heart of hearts could almost feel him just going, I'm going to go to heaven.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going. I have to like be at peace with it.
Yeah.
Because the medical people worked on him as long as they, could. They worked on him for a long time, and they're like, he's gone,
Yeah.
and I just, it's just one of like my worst nightmares come to life. But
Yeah, I can imagine.
it really was. But at the same time, he was, I think my friend came over and she said, Libby, he had the biggest life. In 17 years, that boy lived more than most people do in a lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's things like that people said to me, which really gave me some peace.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, he traveled, he met the love of his life.
Yeah.
Some people in a lifetime don't meet the love of their life,
Yeah.
and she said he just lived so large and enjoyed life. I mean, he was just a walking ball of love and joy.
Yeah.
But he did have pain, and I hate that he had pain. Becky even said he doesn't miss the pain.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm glad I'm thankful that, and honestly, he sends me messages all the time.
Yes.
All the time. Becky said, if you could see him the way I see him, and the other autistics see him, she's like, you wouldn't be sad. She's like, he's just right here. And she said, you wouldn't feel bad. You'd just rejoice in his awesomeness.
Yeah.
He's just awesome. He's huge, loving life, loving that life, that next place. And,
doing amazing things too right now.
Yes. He is. She said he's so busy. He's so busy. And those kinds of things, because he was a busy boy, Nicole.
Yeah.
He was very busy on earth in crazy ways. She always said, Becky said that, she said, it's funny. She says she calls it the cadence of heaven. Yeah. And she said his cadence didn't make sense here, but it makes perfect sense.
It's making sense there. Wow.
He's perfect in heaven. A mess here, perfect in heaven.
I love that. That is beautiful.
It is. And I every time I go through these really terrible patches of grief, I kind of have to go through my little checklist.
Yeah.
that I go through, like, okay, John Paul wants me to know I did everything I could. I gave him a wonderful life. He
Yeah.
loved his life.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I could have done differently that day. Nothing. He wanted me to know there's nothing I could have done differently. The outcome was going to be the same.
The same. Wow.
And the same. Becky said, Libby, you could have been sitting right next to him in the hot tub and he would have died. She said it was his time. It was. What's interesting is 3 days before he passed, I shot a video of him. I have my friends laugh. They're like, you have so many videos and photos of John Paul.
Yeah.
And I think it's twofold. I think he just, I just loved him. I just loved like the things he would do. And he just gave me so much joy. Now, let me tell you, Thomas does too. I love my other twin just the same.
I think we know that.
Yes, they're but John Paul, I just got tickled by him so much, and the day, 3 days before he died, he was in the hot tub and he was so happy, and I shot a video, and he kept looking up at the sky and smiling, and just like someone was there. And then he'd look over at me and wave at me and through the window. And then he'd go right back in the hot tub, just looking up, smiling. And Becky said that my dad and my stepfather had been there all week waiting for him. They didn't know when.
Wow,
but
so that's, oh my goodness.
Yes. She said they were there and John Paul kept looking up, looking at me. It's about a 40-second video. And it was a Brian. I'm like, who is he looking at? And he'd stop because he saw me looking at him and do this little funny sideways thing. And and that usually I would ask him, like, who are you looking at? And he would tell me who he was. Sometimes they were people from my family he had never met. And he would this is so crazy. I felt like I had my own little personal, like, I don't know, comfort, like, because he just always had a beautiful message for me.
Yeah.
No matter what, he always could make things be okay. Because he said, it's just about love, Mom. One time he spelled, nothing here matters but love. Nothing matters. And I mean, if you can live your life that way, you're going to be a happier person.
Yes, that is so true. That is so true. Beautiful. Yeah. One thing I loved too was just how, I think it was talked about in the telepathy tapes, that you mentioned that your stepdad and your dad weren't close before, and yet there they were together. That's
exactly. It was beautiful. I mean, and I love Becky's explanation. Is just that when you die, because she had the experience, she died, and she had that the experience. She just came back. She said, Libby, your ego leaves. You have none of this ego. So they could be together, and they weren't ever enemies, but it's just they were there together to take him up. And I absolutely love that visual.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I love that she said I had all this family there with me. I did not feel alone. The funny thing is, when I was with John Paul, I didn't feel alone. I really didn't. I felt very, very at peace. I knew it was going to be unbelievably hard. I knew, like, okay, here we go. This is we're going to have to, but I did feel like, in John Paul's life, there were so many times he could have left this earth. I think that's why I took so many pictures of him and so many videos. He was hard to keep alive. That child was hard to keep alive. And I used to tell him all the time, you are the hardest child to keep. I mean, he had swallowed a button battery 3 weeks before he passed, and so we had to go to the hospital. Yeah.
And they were able
we had to go to the hospital
out
for that.
Wow.
They had to remove it. That's a bad one.
Yeah.
Well, I know what I was going to tell you, Nicole. The first thing he said to Becky, because Becky, she told Jennifer, I have to meet Libby. I have to tell her everything John Paul wants. Mom needs to know these things about JP's death, because he wants her to know. But the first thing she did, and of course I had all my girlfriends over, they're like my ride or die. I have some really wonderful friends, and
Yeah.
I had them all come over, and Becky comes in, and she is just so wonderful. She has fringe. She wears a lot of fringe, like on her jacket.
Okay.
She has a cowboy
Yes.
hat on. I mean, she is so fabulous. So she sits down and she says, "Well, he is a hoot." She said the first thing he said to her was, "Tell mom I'm full."
Oh, wow, like, from eating?
I'm full. Yeah, she said the first thing he said was, "Tell mom I'm full."
Wow.
And all my friends just about fainted because we all looked at each other. And what she said was because she didn't even know about the pica or his unbelievable
Yeah.
capacity to eat. She said what he's full with, she goes, he's full with the Holy Spirit. He's full with
Oh,
the love of the Holy Spirit. He doesn't need what he needed here on earth. He's full. And
wow.
I mean, it was just such a comforting
Oh, that's comforting. That's
thought.
beautiful.
Yeah,
I just got goosebumps everywhere. That
I
is
know. It was
beautiful.
beautiful. That is, Becky just she could right then when she said that to me that he was full, I knew, okay, she's the real deal. Let's tell me
Yeah.
more, tell me more.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that's amazing. I just
Yeah.
love that you have that. I feel like it helps with keeping you
It gave me
at
incredible
peace.
peace.
Yeah.
It gave me peace, and it's not to say I don't have days that are horrible, or
Mhm.
it's more missing him. It's not feeling sad that he's in heaven and having the time of his
Yeah.
life. That gives
It's
me great
yeah, that's
joy.
beautiful. Yeah.
That is the best. What makes me sad is that I adored being with him. I
Yeah.
just loved his company.
Yeah.
Um, I loved how silly and fun he was. I loved how smart he was.
Yeah.
He just made me feel good. That's what I miss.
Yeah.
That is what I miss is just selfishly, I want his big body here. But
Yes.
so instead I put it all into the kids that I see. And
Yeah.
it's so funny. One of the autistics at the NIA school, it's actually Maya's daughter. And Malia spelled when it was at the anniversary of JP's passing. And I just, I don't think Maya thought I was going to go in to work, or it's not really work. I volunteer. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just volunteer. It's just, I just love doing it.
Mhm.
But I went in because I'm like, I can sit home and be sad. I can go there and have fun with these
Yeah.
kids. And so I went in, and Malia is in there. And it's funny that for that particular day, one of her old teachers shows up, Alex, and it was really great because Alex spells very well with Malia.
Mhm.
Malia is a phenomenal speller, so I spell with her, and so did Alex. And so I put the board down because we're getting ready to do something because Malia wanted to tell me something. Malia
Mhm.
spells, "I see John Paul." And so I'm like, "Oh, what? Tell me more. Tell me." I mean, I
Yeah.
he would probably be visiting because he visits. He's always around. That's what Becky
Yeah.
said. He's always around. And so then Malia went on to say she spells that John Paul was telling him he's sorry he had to leave them, his friends. He
Yes.
said, he said, then he goes, "But I love my position and view in heaven."
Oh, sweet. How he where he is and what
Yes,
he's
he
able to
loves his position, he loves his view.
oh,
And then
sweet.
he said, then he spells, "Tell dad," and Emily's spelling this right. "Tell dad I'm sorry I left him with all of Libby's love overflow."
Oh, sweet.
And Malia used my name, not mom, because Malia knows me as Libby. And
Yeah.
she spelled that John Paul said, "Tell dad I'm sorry I left him with all mom's love overflow." But he said, "All mom's love overflow that kept my headaches away," is what
Oh,
he said.
sweet. Oh, wow.
And it was really such an amazing day. And see, that wouldn't have happened had I not gone
If you
in,
didn't go,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm not my friend was with me. One of my best friends is doing her RPM training, and she was there that day. And you could see Jenny was so excited, and she had this paper plate, and she's writing everything Malia says down, and
Yeah.
we're all just every and so the RBTs, because they have Maya has a wonderful school, and I love her approach because she's having um RBTs are actually with the kids, so there is that component of
Okay.
ABA. However, they're learning spelling, they're learning that our kids are competent. So
Yeah.
my thought is down the road that there is got to be a marriage between ABA and spelling. And because
Yeah.
if we can all just think about, like, wouldn't it be great to use those 40 hours to work on
Yeah.
spelling
Yeah.
along with other
Yeah.
things that are important, like, things that require motor planning. But I always
Yes.
thought surely we can these things can be
Like
married
combined
together somehow.
adaptive.
But
Yeah.
people are that I think it could be, but people are going to have to agree to maybe be wrong. And I
Yes.
think people have a really hard time with that. I don't
With that.
have a hard
Yep.
time with that. I've been wrong a lot in my life, Nicole.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care. Like, I was so happy to find something that worked for John Paul.
Yeah.
I I was like, yes, everything we've been wrong.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Like Elizabeth
I
Moss
think
changed her whole practice. I just feel like we've got new information. So we
yes.
need to change things with this new information. That's the
Yeah.
way, that's progress. And
Yeah.
I don't think everything in ABA is a problem. I just think you need to presume competence that,
Yes.
the other thing, a lot of people think that they have to teach all of these skills that they really don't have to teach. Like John Paul, I mean, we did it at 8. John Paul was
Mhm.
already spelling. I mean, he already knew how to read and spell. I just didn't know he knew.
Yeah.
But his brother started reading at 2.5, and I never taught him, but he was right there in the preschool classes learning letters and sounds. He was watching Sesame Street.
So,
He was, um, he just developed it. So why would John Paul, being right there next to him,
okay,
not
yeah,
do
that's
that?
what I was gonna ask. If Jambo was right there, he also knew, and that's how
Yes.
he.
Yes, and that's the thing. I read to both boys every night. I didn't, they were both in the room, and I was reading to them. And I mean, had Sesame Street on. I had things that they were watching and learning, and uh, that's how we learn. I mean, how did we learn to talk? How do we learn things? It's a lot of people think they have to teach when they're really little. Of course, teach the letters because they're really little, and it makes sense. Like if
Yes.
someone came to me with a 4-year-old that wanted to spell, I would check to see if they knew their letters, because
Yeah.
they probably do if they've
Yeah.
been exposed. But because people say, "Oh, they can't start working on this till they're 8." Like, that's ridiculous. Of course they can start
My
working
son
on
started at
spelling
4.
to be okay.
My son
That's
started at
beautiful.
4, and at that time, he was the only one that we knew of in the whole world
Yes.
doing it, that we knew.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what people were saying. Well, let's start, 7's a good time. And no, no, no. 4 is a fabulous time for
Yeah.
them to have a
Yes.
voice. And it's
Absolutely.
not going to stop anyone from talking. In fact,
Yes.
if anything, it'll promote talking. The issue with ASHA is they don't like presuming competence. They don't like the method.
Yeah.
They don't want you to use this method, which it still blows my mind. It's hard to be a speech therapist and not be angry at Asha. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
true.
it's tough. Yeah, I can imagine. Like,
It's a struggle. It is a struggle, but I know I'm not the only speech therapist that is spelling. And
yeah.
I know that it's becoming more popular. I do
Yes.
think that Asha's going to have to change their stance, or
Yeah.
we're going to have to create a new Asha for spellers
Yes.
and speech
Yes.
therapists.
I
And
hope.
I'm not the one to take that project on, but I am sure there's a lot of type A people that are.
That
A lot
might,
of
yeah,
really
it's
good
going to happen. Yeah.
type A therapists that are like, oh yes, we're starting it. I'll join,
Yes. Yeah,
I'll join in a
absolutely.
heartbeat.
Yeah, that seems like that's something that would be really necessary at this point if they could keep
Well,
being
I
that
mean,
way.
yeah, it's all made up. It's like,
Yeah,
Azure decided we're the organization that does this. Well, you
yeah.
know, okay.
That's another thing that just I can't like, why is it what they say is what goes? Like,
Well,
and
I
people are
agree.
listening to that. Ugh,
It's infuriating. I want to, well, things that have happened over the years just make me so sad because if I were right out of grad school and I wasn't married and I was, on my own and didn't have a combined income or, whatever. And Asha was telling me, if you do this, you're going to lose your C's, your certificate of clinical competence. We will take it
yeah,
away.
mhm,
I probably would have been intimidated enough to not do it either. So I don't
yeah,
really blame the speech therapists. They're just following the guidelines that ASHA has put in place
yeah,
and their code of ethics.
yeah,
Who I blame is who the heck is doing that?
yeah.
Who
The
has
ones
decided
up,
this?
yeah,
Right. And then I want to go back and I want to say, okay, so do you have an autistic child? How many autistic people do you work with? If you knew autism, you would know you can't do the kind of research you want with an autistic. So you're not going to get what you want. And they're just not. Our kids are so sensitive. It's like you can't. It. I actually we just did a thing, Talk Tapes, that's coming out. And
yeah,
I've talked about this and that, all this work to disprove our kids is so cruel.
yeah,
It's so ugly. And who has to constantly prove themselves over and over and over again? Very few people. Nobody, no parent would put up with that. But
yeah,
autism parents have to put up with so much garbage.
yeah,
And it's like, it is garbage. It's like, I mean, if you think about if you really think about it, do they think we're lying? They're basically calling us liars.
yeah.
Like, you're
But
lying. I'm like, I'm not lying. Like it's like, how do you do that? But they have no problem. You're lying. You must
yeah,
be delusional,
yeah.
or something.
I
And
saw someone say that they're exploiting families. Like we are so gullible.
oh my gosh. And I would love to know, who is this person? Are they married? Do they even have kids?
Yeah,
Are they just they're just repeating rhetoric junk that they've heard. I remember they're just repeating what they've been told. And I remember I was at the ballpark. Thomas was playing football, and there's this lovely family who I just adore them. They have the most adorable daughter she's not autistic, but she had a reason why she couldn't speak.
okay.
And it was something going on with her. Gosh, I don't remember, but it was, I think it had to do with, she said, well, she was only born with a part of her brain or something. So
Okay.
I'm watching the sweet this beautiful little girl running around. There is a lot of cognition going on in that child's head. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. She may not, but we have been told to just follow the body, follow, apraxia. It's like people don't even know what you're talking about when you say
Yeah.
apraxia.
Yeah.
And I remember telling the mama all about what I was doing with John Paul.
Yeah.
And because we had just started spelling at that time, and I wanted the
Yeah.
mom to know, I would have just worked with her daughter for free just to get her going,
Yeah.
I was so excited. I thought that when John Paul started spelling, I would tell someone and they'd be like me, oh my gosh, how awesome.
Yeah.
Let's do this. But they not. It's amazing how cynical people are.
Yeah.
And I guess when you've not been desperate to find something that worked, and when you find something at work, all you want to do is have the entire world know about it. Because
Yes,
it is
exactly, because you
your
wanna
life.
save everybody
You
that
want to, yes, you want to help. And the mom was excited, and then she called her speech therapist, who was right out of grad school, by the way.
yeah.
Like, literally, she might have been 23, 24. And because she told her, oh, that doesn't work, that's not real.
Oh.
No, and I'm looking at her like,
Yeah.
okay, I've been working for over 20 years. I've seen thousands of children. I've been spelling at this point with many children I had, and I'm like, okay, we'll go with the 24-year-old that has 6 months experience that
Yeah,
is
that
following guidelines
hasn't
of that.
seen much
I
yet.
I was like, but you can't. I just was flabbergasted, and
Yeah,
I thought, I'm just can't. You can't. I'm not gonna sit there and get upset. I'm just not gonna do that. But inside, I was thinking, your daughter probably has so much she wants to say to you,
yeah,
and you don't presume competence. And you know what, this little girl's going to be treated well her whole life. She is going to, they love her, they adore her, but it's just quality of life could be better. And
yes,
that's like the whole thing with telepathy tapes was, let's just improve our kids' quality of life. I mean,
yeah,
like different, I don't know. It's so easy to improve quality of life just by keeping your thoughts positive and
yeah.
putting things in place. There's a sweet boy who has autism and Down syndrome that my friend's been spelling with, and he's doing beautifully,
Oh,
beautifully. And it's like, I mean, he has a voice.
yeah,
It's not just for strictly autistic kids. It's for everybody.
yeah.
And I mean, the mom said his entire being has changed just
Oh,
by telling them to maybe put Harry Potter on instead of, like, it's okay to have his baby stuff, because John Paul loved some of his baby stuff because it was very calming to him, like to play very childish musical things. I mean, I sang Daddy Finger for a very many, many, many years. Daddy
yeah,
Finger and uh, London Bridges played on the iPad, and we would crack up and sing it out loud, all of us, while we were getting ready in the morning.
yeah,
And but then he's doing pre-calculus
yeah,
and poetry. So, we all have our thing. And
yeah,
but it kept him, comfortable, and he liked that. But so this young man, he's in his 20s. He has his things, but then she said, "Oh my gosh, he's obsessed with Harry Potter." Obsessed.
oh,
And because it's something new, and it's more mature, and I mean, everyone who pretty much loves the story, not everyone, but I do, like different
yeah.
stories of Harry Potter.
Mhm.
And it's just that improved that kid's quality of life.
Oh, sweet.
Those two things, like the parents realizing he's in there,
Yeah,
presuming competence, and just putting things on that are more interesting
for
already.
him.
That's so easy.
Yeah,
That's such a thing to do. And so in my eyes, yeah, sure, I'd love for everyone to spell. And I mean, but even if a parent will never spell with their kid, at least know these things about your child.
yes, that
You know,
they're really in there.
they're really in there, and that presuming competence just made a world of difference for John Paul. Um, eh, it doesn't, and those are things that don't really cost anything. they're,
Yes,
they're free.
exactly. It doesn't cost much.
The problem with people who are super unhappy is it's just a paradigm shift.
Yes,
They just have been told the same thing for so long.
and you feel like that's it.
Yeah, they feel like that's it. And people that are telling them are people that they respect, and
Mhm.
that and again, if I hadn't had John Paul, maybe I would have been that way. I'd like to think I would have been open-minded. I
Yeah,
really would, but who knows? I'll never know. But I was supposed to have John Paul. I
yeah,
was supposed to learn these things
yeah,
and be able to do what I can to help. That it was all for a reason, but
yeah,
I can't say who knows how I would have felt. Like I said, I thought I knew everything
yeah,
until I had an autistic child and realized I knew nothing that I thought I knew.
yeah,
You only know until you know. You only
yes,
know until you're in that position. I think we're all just trying to do the very best we can. I think if we could just all just realize and just listen and try. What's the harm in trying?
yes. You could
Yeah,
try different things at the same time, just in case.
totally.
For us, that's how we
Absolutely.
started with spelling. I mean, he was still doing PECs around that
Yeah.
time because he was
Mhm.
4. So we're like doing PECs
Yeah.
and starting with the AAC, but also spelling. I was like, I'm keeping whatever works here will show. It will show up.
So wise of you, because there's no harm in any of them.
Mhm.
Really, there's no harm. It's just that the spelling lets you communicate really meaningfully. It's
Yeah,
like
you
we
get to
always,
who they really are.
yes, it's
Yeah,
organic thoughts coming. But
yeah.
I'm on Instagram and I see kids who are fabulous with their AAC devices.
Mhm.
And they're very good at maneuvering through those dynamic pages, so because of dynamic display, they go boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see how they did on a letterboard, but they do have a letterboard on their device and some kids are using it. But I just wonder, are they doing interesting lessons where they can find out more about their personality?
Yeah.
Like they may not realize how much their kids have in there.
Yes.
But I
That's
feel
true.
like do what works. Like I wouldn't say, oh, get rid of your AC device. And that's one thing that poor girl who's so unhappy. She
Yeah.
thinks that we're saying no, no AAC, none of this. No, I had AAC with John Paul. I even had a yes no button on my phone that we could just quickly figure something out
Yeah.
fast, because John Paul's yes and no weren't consistent with his
Yeah.
head. They were when he pointed.
Uh,
And that's AAC. I'm like, no, do what works, but just be open to some new things.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all,
That's true.
but
For us, my son spells on his AAC device, but he's
that's
not, it's
cool.
just his phrases and not organic thoughts.
Okay,
So that's
gotcha.
the difference.
It is a
So
difference.
yeah. And I know that the spelling is what will bring out his organic thoughts because he
Oh,
does all day long. He'll spell Mickey Mouse phrases and sometimes he's communicating through them, but that is not who he
yes,
really is. I want
no,
him. I want to know what's
exactly.
really in there.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you will get so I'm so excited for you because it just gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
And I remember Thomas. So Thomas, is the twin. It's kind of naughty. I mean, John Paul's
Yeah.
naughty too. Don't get me wrong; they're both naughty. They did a lot
Yeah.
of. But Thomas, I remember one time this is after spelling, and Thomas wanted something, and so I said, "No, I'm sorry, no." And he still went in my purse and got my money out and took it for what he wanted. So I was really angry with him about that because, he stole from his mother and I
Yeah.
was furious. It was like, $10, but still I said no, and he did. So we're sitting at the dinner table and I'm talking to Thomas about it. And I'm just so annoyed just because he, did that. And John Paul is sitting there at the table and he wanted to say something. We put the board down and John Paul spells, Thomas is a criminal. We just all
Oh my
died
goodness.
laughing. It was so funny. He's like, Thomas is a criminal.
Wow.
And I mean, he could just really express, like he was teasing. I mean, he was being funny when he said it, he was making a joke. But
Yeah.
it was awesome,
Yeah.
that he could express
Sweet.
that. And we all looked at each
Yeah,
other and
in
just
that
died
way.
laughing.
Yeah.
And so we always have to letterboard at the dinner table. And that was and I remember we played one time and we would play games at the dinner table. I remember one time we were just going to name, it was silly, but we were naming state capitals. And
Okay.
the state capital, because my geography anyway is ridiculously bad. So we were just, the boys used to like find out how much I don't know. So we would play games
Yeah.
and stuff like, things like I'm terrible with math and numbers and stuff, but it's hard to be the only girl in the house, Nicole.
I know exactly how it is.
Yes, it can be tough. We get a lot of punishment.
Yeah.
And so we were, doing the states, and then John Paul, we would spell, like Thomas, what is the capital of blah, blah, blah. So John Paul knew all of them. Every single one of them
Wow.
he spelled. And
Wow.
we were cracking up. Thomas his mouth is just hanging open. And,
Like, how do you know that?
yes, and I put the board down and John Paul spells. Thomas is trying to figure out how I did that. And it was so funny. I mean, we were all just blown away by it. And I was, it was like, oh my gosh, so if you listen to Telepathy Tapes, it could be that John Paul had the same kind of gifts that one boy did from England.
Yeah.
You know, do you remember that? It's like
The one who would be able to touch a book.
yes, yes.
Okay.
It could be John Paul, or you know, Peter loves maps, and I had a map on the wall of the United States in his bedroom. So
Okay.
who's to say
You
he
must have seen it
wasn't
for
looking
so
at it
many.
and
Yeah.
studying it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and they
true.
also John Paul had unbelievable photographic memory.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's lots of ways he could have done it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but he did do it. And we're not
Yeah.
crazy. And I don't know them. But so it's like, you know, but it's just John Paul's like, Tom's trying to figure out how I did this. Because yes, Thomas is like, how in the world did you do
Did
that?
you do that?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Kind of things that I think is so nice. And a letterboard's just so easy to keep at the table.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just such an easy thing to incorporate into like a family talk or
Yeah.
discussion, or
Yeah.
so he can have a chance to express his opinion.
Yeah. I love that. We're definitely going to use that in the future when
Yeah.
our
Oh,
son gets open.
you're going to have to keep me posted on your
Yeah.
spelling journey. I just
Yeah.
am so excited for you. And I every time I don't know, when I first saw it, I just couldn't stop crying. I couldn't
Yeah.
stop crying until I could get John Paul in the workshop. That's kind
Yeah.
of what I expect people to feel, but I think, you know, some people are more cynical than others. I just fully was like, I saw it with my own eyes and went,
Yeah.
this is awesome. This is it.
Yeah.
Finally, this is it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's awesome. I loved our conversation. Thank you so much.
you're so welcome. It was so much fun. I loved it. I love meeting
Yes.
you. And please, let's keep in touch. Okay, Nicole?
Yes. Yes, I definitely will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. If you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time.